tell you a quick little origin story. So before we started the PLL, my brother Mike and I had a 10-page deck, and we were walking all over Madison Avenue to try to get a network to sign up for professional lacrosse. NBC took that first bet. It was Mark Lazarus, John Miller, and it was Pete Bavacqua in a room full with others, and they believe in building sports properties. What inspired me as an athlete growing up was that music, that hymn. What is it? You guys know what that is? It's the NBA, right? So the NBA is now back on NBC. That's this upcoming panel. It's a conversation on taking legacy and innovation to new heights. We have Julie Morris here. She's the SVP of Commercial Development and Media at the NBA. Peter Lazarus, who is the SVP Olympics and Sports NBCU Advertising and Partnership. And one of my favorite people in the business of sports and media, Mike Tirico, who's a host and play-by-play at NBC Sports. He's such a lovely man. Hosted by Luz Corona, editor-in-chief of Campaign. Enjoy, everyone.
Okay, hello everyone. How are we doing today? We're in France. I think we're all okay right now. Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining. We're going to talk a little basketball today.
Love it.
Love it. So my first question goes to all three of you. As we all know, the NBA is coming back to NBC after 20 years, but a lot has changed since then. Most notably, the role of basketball, we were talking a little bit about this, is more in mainstream culture, right? These athletes are influencers now, sports highlight culture. What are your thoughts on the evolution of basketball culture since we last saw it on NBC? Mike, you look ready to go.
All right, I guess I'm starting.
Mike's always ready to go.
I was going to pass it to a teammate, be a good point guard. You know, I would say, as you look at basketball, it's so unique. The players are basically in their underwear. They're in a tank top and shorts. They're so close to the fans. They're accessible. So the NBA athlete has always been an individual star that jumps through the screen. But I think more and more as social media, fashion, music, all of that is blended with the athletes in basketball, I think the athletes have become bigger stars even earlier. So even before their greatness on the court, there's identification and recognition. So I know I've been away for almost a decade, coming back to an NBA where there are a lot more stars out there already. And I think that's an exciting part of where the league has been over the last several years.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we've sort of noticed is the NBA sort of crossed over from a sports property to truly a global platform. And part of that is due to the athletes themselves, as you talked about, but it's also the game itself. It's the #2 sport globally. It's the fastest growing sport. And so many of our fans have grown up playing the game, and the game itself is really driving a lot of fandom. And that leads to a lot of social media consumption, right? And so that has been a big thing in the last 20 years, of course, that everyone's paying attention to. And the game is highly snackable. To your point, the players are larger than life, so they lend themselves to vertical content. And it's a very highlight-driven sport, which works for us to sort of distribute the game globally and allow fans to watch the game however they want, whenever they want, and wherever they want. And they do want to watch it on NBC, which is great, so we're coming back.
Well, I think you guys covered it all, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, you both said things. You talked about fans and you talked about platforms. And you talk about fans, and it's probably the most diverse crowd that's out there. It's younger than most other sports, and it brings new people to the table. And from a platform perspective, we believe we're going to meet consumers where they are and how they want to consume. And going from a linear broadcast to almost 40% of our games being streamed is how people are consuming media today, and the NBA is going to be part of that evolution.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it like on streaming now too, more on NBC. Now, Mike, we're going to be seeing a lot of you this upcoming season, and I wanted to ask you about, there was this piece that The Ringer did about your approach when it comes to announcing sports, and you are very regimented. I mean, you are in it. Can you give us a sneak peek on your play-by-play approach, if it'll be different since the last time you were reporting on games? What can we expect?
Well, I think the job stays the same. You're there to document, inform, and entertain the audience, depending on what's happening in front of you at each moment in the game. And the preparation's key to all three of those elements. So if we don't get a chance to prepare properly, then I don't think we do the audience right. For me, I think it changes because now the players are putting out their own content.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their social media channels. That was not the case when I was doing the NBA for 15 years back during my time with the Disney Corporation. So we have to adjust and grow with the times. So a lot of times these athletes are their own messenger. So I think I'm a little hipper and cooler. I'm following a whole bunch of NBA players on social over the last 9 months since I knew we were getting back in the game. And that's part of the story because I think they give you the open door to have conversation with them. And hopefully that leads to a new bit of information that you can share with the audience. And they want to watch more. We need to know, and that's something I'd like to see all of us do, talk more about the players and what they do on the court. The soap opera of basketball is wonderful sideline, but these are the best athletes in the world at their game. And I think to be able to talk about them some more is something that I hope we can bring to the broadcasts as we get started in October.
Yeah, so it's going to be still about the craft and these athletes on the court and everything.
The game is the thing. Everything off the game is additive. The most important thing, people are coming to watch a competition. When that score bug's in the corner, every sport, the rating goes up from the pregame show. It's because people want to see the best in the world do what they do. And you have to serve them and let them know what's going on the court before you delve into levels 2, 3, and 4. It's like a great layer cake.
Yeah.
You know, just, it's not the icing, it's the cake, right?
Yeah.
But both together are pretty damn good. So we're going to go for both together.
That's right. That's great. And for anyone who didn't read the article, can you tell us a little bit? Like, do you really look up stats in those 5 seconds that you have?
1,000%.
Oh my gosh.
You were always trying to find out the next bit of information that nobody has stumbled across before. So it's for a football game, we estimate 70 or 80 hours a week. Basketball's not as much preparation because it's less people. But you want to make sure that if somebody happens to have their moment, you never know who's going to be the star of a game. You want to make sure you're ready to tell their story. And that's kind of what our oxygen is and the job that I do and our production team as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not questioning you, Mike, but before the internet, when you were at Syracuse University calling games, how did we react in that in real time?
It was the old school days of carry around media guides and look it up and get newspaper clips. Thankfully, the world has changed and evolved. So who knows well, I have an idea what the next step is, but it's a fun evolution. It's great to grow. It keeps you young.
The next step, as we talked about, will be bringing AI into this, so it's even more instantaneous.
1,000%. 1,000%.
And then you're going to have to fact check your stuff. That's
know, yeah.
dangerous.
That's priority one.
Yes. Now, Peter, question to you. As you talked about, sports on NBC, your role touches on the whole sports portfolio. How do the NBA and the WNBA fit into the larger sports strategy at NBC?
Yeah, well, coming up in 2026, we have the biggest year in the history of our company. It's actually the 100th anniversary of our company. It's the 20th anniversary of Sunday Night Football, where Mike calls the games, the #1 show on television. And then we have what we're calling the legendary February, where we'll have the opening ceremonies, 2 weeks of the Olympics, the Super Bowl, and the NBA All-Star Game, all baked into one. What the NBA does for us is brings in a younger crowd, a little bit more diverse crowd, and gives us better seasonality all year long, where we have content from first through third quarter, where our schedule before was much heavier in third and fourth. So the NBA really gives us a much more round and consistent offering for our advertisers.
Love it. And then, Julie, this affects you too, because as we mentioned earlier, basketball is deeply embedded in mainstream culture. How are you thinking about fandom differently in 2025? When it comes to the younger and global audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, Mike was answering it quite well. I mean, generally when we think about what drives fandom and how our fans are consuming the NBA, it really does start with the game itself, and it really is very important. But what we've noticed about these younger, more culturally diverse or tech-savvy fans is they really do demand us to stay on the cutting edge of all of technology and how we're sharing information with them and how we're distributing all of the fun facts of the game that they need to know so they can learn and participate in fandom throughout our very long and compelling season. And it's like a fun time right now because, as you know, like we're in the middle of the NBA Finals. I don't know anyone was up at 2 a.m. watching the game here, but I wasn't, but I did check it in the morning, and we're in this nice precipice of crowning our 7th champion in 7 years, which is nice. Our league have parity across all of our teams, and our game has sort of never been better. And so as we think about building sort of our global fan base around this sport that's so dynamic and so fast-paced, we're really excited about partnering with our friends at NBC, who are some of the best storytellers in the world, and they introduce athletes that have sort of been behind the scenes maybe for some time in their storytelling, and they really can help us introduce our sort of the next wave of NBA stars for the next decade to come. It's very exciting.
But fandom is paramount to everything, right? And right now there's more ticket sales, more merchandise sales. People are consuming across multiple platforms. Sports is creating these emotional connections and forming community that really drives viewership on NBC. But it's the fandom that the NBA creates that we then deliver.
And what I love is, and it's so appropriate to have this conversation in France, the global nature of this league. You go back to the Dream Team in the early 90s, that changed the course of the NBA for generations. And I think we saw it in Paris this past summer at the Olympic Games. Tony Parker's influence. You look around Paris, there were so many jerseys of NBA players. They were rock stars as they've appeared in Europe and have been when the league has come over here for over 2 decades. So, and look at Victor Wembanyama, who may be the next unique special talent in the NBA. That brings a whole country to follow his success on a global scale. So I think the diversity of the league really goes through so many different columns of diversity, right? It's not just gender diversity or racial diversity or ethnic diversity. All the way across the board, I think you find something that appeals to you with the NBA, and that's what I think is unique compared to the other major sports in America.
Yeah, and one of the opportunities we're bringing forth is one of our early October games will be broadcast from Mexico City, again, to bring in that global appeal.
Yeah, and as we think about sort of the legendary February, which I think is some of the best branding I've heard in a while, and we have our first All-Star game in the middle of your Olympic coverage, and we think about sort of a U.S. versus the world dynamic is how we fill that the veracity and the fan demand for sort of international content. So that'll be fun.
And don't let that go by, because that's going to be so great. So the NBA All-Star game, and Commissioner Silver mentioned that, just at the start of the finals. I know, see, it's been a while.
He would be blessed to hear that.
David would be so happy with me if I said that.
So will Adam.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. If you think about the time during the window of the Olympics, you're thinking USA, other countries around the world competing against each other, and then we're going to have some international type component in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Right in the middle, the Olympics will be on, and then the NBA All-Star game, and then back to the Olympics.
Yeah.
That's such a great synergy and such a great table for LA 28, when we might see Team USA not be the favorite in the Olympics in men's basketball, which is kind of powerful to even think about that. But that is the fault of USA basketball and spreading the word of how great the game is with that famous Dream Team.
And I think a shout out to our friends at the NHL, because what they did with the Four Nations, I think, raised the awareness of what international and domestic, U.S. domestic competition can do for the sport.
No doubt.
Yeah, and the team fandom side of it too. Yeah.
So when you're determining kind of your global efforts and everything, how are you determining the markets? Like, is it where you're seeing there's more of an affinity? Is it where you're seeing there's potential? Or are you closing your eyes and just pointing on the map? Like, how are you guys doing it?
It's both, actually. So there's certain markets that the game of basketball is incredibly powerful and important. And when we think about new markets, we kind of have like a three-pronged stroke. So we think about basketball development, we think about fan development, and we also look at the high levels of talent. You talked about it earlier, but one of our biggest stars is from Greece, and so we have a big fandom in Greece right now. So a lot of it's where the players are pulling from, and they bring their entire country with them. But we also do really truly think that basketball, and most sports they're really a unifying force. And so when we go to new markets, we really try and use the games to sort of bring people together, bring communities together, teach the game. There's a lot of life lessons that you learn from playing basketball, teamwork and leadership and camaraderie. So it's a sort of a three-pronged approach in terms of growth in each market.
Yeah. A lot of lessons to learn. My 6-year-old needs to learn how to be better at losing in basketball. That's what I'm dealing with right now.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
So, Mike, you've covered a lot of things in your career: Olympic gold medal moments, Super Bowls, epic NBA matchups. Where does the NBA's return on NBC rank in your list of professional full circle moments?
Well, it hits a couple of things for me. One is the music, the Jordan era, all of that was the real build of the NBA to, I think, a different level that crossed past sports and became part of the cultural conversation on a regular basis. And that, for me, was my time as I was becoming a national sportscaster. So things stopped when the Bulls and Michael Jordan were on those Sunday games on NBC. Nothing ever messed with 6 o'clock and getting off of network TV for national sports, except for the Super Bowl with a rare event. But the brilliance of the NBA on NBC era, Michael Jordan and the Bulls, they would play games at 5:30. We'll go right through 60 minutes, obliterate that time slot, and people loved it because they demanded that. So it, to me, signaled that point where the NBA went like this and took that next step. So for me to be back around the people who were so formative in this generation of growth for the NBA is really exciting, and to have the honor to sit in a chair where so many of the greats have, like Marv Albert and Bob Costas, and be a part of the NBA coverage on NBC and bring that to fans again is really great. There's a lot of nostalgia in our return to the NBA, but I think the product is going to have everything that feels 2025, 2026. But hearing that music, for whatever reason, sports themes tend to take you back to moments in time, and I think that NBA theme does. So to have that, and the NBA on NBC just has a ring to it as well. So to be a part of all of that is really darn cool, to be honest. Can't wait to get back courtside in October and get started with this journey for the next 11 years.
I think something else to think about, too, is not only the return to NBC, but it's the return to broadcast television. And nothing against our competitive set and your current partners, I'm sorry. But the trajectory of cable is a little bit different than the trajectory of broadcast. And going from 10 games this season to 65 games next season. And NBC next year will have about 129 nights of sports in prime time, which is unprecedented for us. But it shows the power of live, the power of sports, and the return to broadcast television.
I'm glad you said that, because every time I talk to folks, they're shocked to find out that on their NBC station, every Tuesday night during the season, this could be an NBA regular season game. And a live one on the East Coast, a live one on the West Coast, and whichever coast you're not on, you get the other game on Peacock. So to have on a Tuesday night the NBA, just like you have football on Sunday night, and then when we get towards February, starting the Sunday nights with the NBA as well, we'll have the NBA on Sunday night on NBC, Monday on Peacock, and then Tuesday right back on NBC.
So
Great momentum.
I get to watch from home, Mike, but you'll be there every single Sunday for the rest of your life.
It sounds really good until I am sitting in Oklahoma City in February going, okay, I have to be in Sacramento in 2 nights. But that's the joy of that time of the year for sure.
Yeah, they're keeping you busy.
Okay.
We're keeping everybody busy. Between the NBA and the WNBA, I think we're 300 nights of live basketball a year.
Wow,
which
is
kinda
that right?
crazy. Yeah.
I love it. Let's talk about the WNBA for a second. Obviously, everybody's caught on women's sports. Yes, we love it. Everybody's catching on now. What are your thoughts there? I mean, my mind immediately, from a branding perspective, goes to Big Ellie, the brand mascot for New York
because
Liberty.
you have a daughter.
Yes, yeah. And, it's just interesting to see awareness played that way. And I feel like that put that team on the mark. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the evolution of WNBA culture.
I mean, so we sort of like to say that we bet on women's sports 28 years ago. So we've been in this for a long time, and we've seen the cultural shifts. So we just talked about all the influence of the NBA on culture. The WNBA is culture, So we have, obviously, Candace was up here earlier, and some of these women athletes are some of the most impressive people that you'll ever meet, and they're crossing over to all facets of the sport, both on the court and off the court. And what's interesting is we've seen a lot of growth in sort of the fandom of the women specifically as athletes, but then also as marketers and influencers, and some of their shoe brands like Asia's Shoes, like taking off, the men are wearing it, So it's like they truly have created women's sports culture at the WNBA, and it's really an exciting time.
Sabrina as well, Sabrina Ionescu, her shoe. I'll tell you an anecdote from this week. I guess it's just 36 hours ago. We're covering the U.S. Open golf tournament at Oakmont, notoriously a very difficult course, known as one of the most difficult in America. And Caitlin Clark, who came back Saturday and had 35 points, hit 3 logo threes in a row, she put out on social media, like, how hard is this course? I think I'd shoot 120. And so in the break, one of our staffers saw that and said, oh my God, it's really cool. Caitlin Clark's tweeting about the U.S. Open. Like, okay, let's put it on the air. That has never been said during the U.S. Open final round. There's a WNBA player tweeting about this event. Let's get that on TV right away. And that shows you the power of Caitlin and in general the power that the WNBA is now harnessing and inspiring another generation. You said the NBA bet on the women's sports 25 years ago. I met my wife in college. She played basketball at Syracuse, so I've been watching women's basketball up close as part of my family, my life, for 35 years. I never thought we'd be here. And the great thing is it's going straight forward and straight up. It's so cool.
Yeah. Does your wife ever watch the games with you? What does she think?
She does. She does. She's amazed too at not only what's happening, but I think the key with the WNBA's success, the quality of the basketball has gotten so good. Mm-hmm. Early on, the quality was not as good, and now it's so good we're seeing expansion. We're going to see teams in a couple more NBA cities here in the next few years, and that's because the pool of players is getting so good. There are players who played last year and were good who don't make teams now. So we need more spaces for the best players. So the WNBA is a great part of the success story, not just of the moment, but the movement of women's sports.
And that'll just continue to grow, right? More teams, more games, bigger schedule, more markets, bringing more people to the set. Hopefully to watch the WNBA finals on NBC next year.
There you go. Tie it all together.
Yeah, you got to give a plug. Shameless plug.
Now, I have to think about my marketer friends in the audience now, and I want to pick your guys' brain. You know, when it comes to the world of sports, what big bets are you most excited about in the next 2 to 3 years that the folks in the audience should know about? Peter, I'll start with you.
I think it's all about global properties coming back to the U.S. And you think about the World Cup in 26 that we will broadcast in Spanish language on Telemundo, but the biggest soccer tournament we've ever seen across North America in 3 countries, right? 16 cities, 48 teams. I think it's 104 games in 40 days. It'll be a pretty epic event, and I think marketers are gravitating to a domestic World Cup and how they can utilize it for their brands. I think that is also going to be a springboard for what LA 28 will be in 3 years, which again will be probably the largest event that's ever occurred in terms of number of athletes, number of countries, number of events, number of tickets sold, number of volunteers. It's really going to be an amazing event, and then marketers have a rare opportunity to be a part of that on domestic soil.
I have a similar answer. I do think the globalization of all sports is really something that we're seeing a lot. We're having a lot of our official marketing partners or brands that we work with want to storytell around the NBA and across the entire globe. It's not just a U.S. property anymore. It really does help you break through into global markets. And our players are like the perfect example of that. They themselves are global marketers. You know, how many of us watch that viral clip of Wemby playing chess? You know, I mean, he's like across the board. It's just the globalization of sport. And I think the WNBA also is becoming a pretty big global footprint as well. So I would say if you couple the globalization with women's sports, that's where your sweet spot's going to be.
I'll pick up on both of those and focus specifically on LA 28 and the Olympics coming back to the U.S. Really, if you think about the last Olympic Games in the United States, 26 years, quarter century before that, in Salt Lake City, a Winter Games, you have to go back to Atlanta in '96 for the last Summer Games. So you're talking the biggest sporting event that brings the whole world together, the Olympic Games. The largest version of that has not been in America in about a third of a century, which gives you that similar or higher percentage of people in the U.S. who've never had the Olympics on their soil. So from a global perspective, where does that tie in as well from a marketing standpoint? I think it'll be the largest collection of the best athletes in the world in one place. Of course, the Olympics always do that because of the variety of sports. The NBA and the WNBA in general has seen that with the basketball competition at the Olympics. There's a good chance that Major League Baseball will be supplying the players for the baseball competition. In flag football, you'll have NFL players now there. So think about that. You'll have the best football players, the best basketball players, the best baseball players.
Don't forget golf and tennis.
Golf, tennis, all of that. And the way we've gone from amateurism to professionalism in the Olympics, LA 28 might be the greatest collection of athletes ever in one place. Given that, what a marketing goldmine that's going to be. And I know we have already begun our meetings and our discussions and our conversations at NBC about how we're going to cover that, because you get, if you're lucky, one home Olympic Games, domestic games in your career for all the people behind the scenes and those of us on the air. And I hope that's my one. I hope I'm there in a couple of years, and market away. We're happy to help you sell your brand around the biggest event that American sports has ever seen.
Yeah, and so you guys are all saying, like, you know, the trends that we're going to see within the next year, we'll also see, like, in the Olympics and everything, just kind of shaping it. Good. Everybody keep a lookout. That's good. All right, guys, time for one more question. Very professional, very important. Finals are here. How do we feel about them? Or do you want to share who you're rooting for, what you're rooting for? What are your thoughts? Last thoughts.
I'll defer to the experts
Yeah, I was going to
over
say.
here.
We're rooting for more games, long and compelling, and lots of ad dollars spent.
Good answer.
My husband's from Indianapolis, so I'll say
There you
that.
go.
We're still cheering for the New York Knicks. So
Thank you.
go.
Amen. There we go.
I think the Pacers win Game 6 at the Fieldhouse in Indianapolis Thursday night, and we get a Sunday night Game 7 in Oklahoma City. They were the best team all year on their home floor. I don't think they would lose that. But I think a Game 7 will get so many people to the TV to see two of the teams that are really an example, I think, of where the league is going. The way the game is played, the flow of it. It's great to have superstars, but it's also great to have great team play. And I think you're going to see that. And I think Oklahoma City will win on Sunday in Game 7. And then we'll see them open up on October 21st or thereabouts on NBC when they raise a banner and we do opening night.
Nice. So a Game 7. We're seeing Mike's calling it.
You
We
got it,
this. There we
absolutely.
go. All right. Thank you guys so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Having us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy.